All right, today's lesson was 2.7, which is multiplying using partial products. Now, we've been working on the distributive property, and so we've already done all 4 steps that we need in order to do this type of lesson. The only difference is our format of how we work the problem out is a little bit different. So let's take a look at what we have been doing. Here we have a problem, and we're going to solve this problem using the distributive property. Now, we talked about 4 steps that it takes in order for us to solve these problems. Step number 1 is to expand. And we need to expand our larger number. So in this case, we have 38 that we need to expand. So we're going to write 4 times 30 plus 8 is the expanded form of 38. Okay, our second step was to distribute. And when we distribute, we're going to take our 4 and multiply it times our 30, and we're going to take our 4 and multiply it times our 8. So it's going to look like this. 4 times 30 plus 4 times 8. Now, our third step was to solve for our partial products. And all that means is we're going to solve for each of these pieces of our bigger multiplication problem. So we're going to solve 4 times 30 and 4 times 8. 4 times 30, 4 times 3 is 12. I crossed out this 0 and brought it down, so I didn't even have to worry about it. I'm just worried about my basic fact. Plus 4 times 8 is 32. Now my final step, step number 4, is to add to find our actual product. So we're just going to add 120 plus 132, and when we add those together, we would get 152, and we're going to circle it, and that would be our answer. Now, this is a distributive property. This is how we've solved our problems the past 2 lessons. The only difference with this new way, partial product way, is that we're going to look at a problem a little different. Instead of it being horizontal, it's going to be vertical, so one number on top of the other. Now the same 4 steps are going to apply. Our first step is to expand. We're going to take 38 and we're going to expand it. Off to the side, we're going to write 30 and 8. Our second step is to distribute. That doesn't change. I'm going to take my 4 and multiply it times my 30 and multiply it times my 8. Then, my third step is to solve for our partial product. So I have to solve each of these pieces. 3 times 4 is 12. 8 times 4 is 32. Notice how I'm lining all of my numbers up so I can complete my 4th step, which is to add. Add to find my actual product. And there we have it. We have our answer. Now the only difference with this set of problems as opposed to the last 2, other than the problem how it's laid out, is that they're also asking us to estimate. Now when we estimate this type of thing, we have to round our greater number, and we're going to round it to the greatest place value. So we have a 3 here, that's our greatest place value. It's in the tens place, so we're going to round to the tens place. When we're rounding to the tens place for this problem, 38 is going to become 40, and we're going to multiply that times our single digit number, and we're going to get 160 as our estimate. I'm going to put an E for estimate. Okay, now we look at our estimate up here, and we look at our product down here, and we're like, oh, those are pretty close. 160, 152. Yep, I'm pretty sure that my product is correct. It's in the right range. Okay, let's take a look at another problem. We're going to do the same steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. So step number 1 is to expand. 197. Step number 2 is to distribute. So we're going to take our 3 and we're going to multiply it times each piece. Step number 3 is to multiply to find our partial products. Notice how I'm starting all the way in the ones place when I'm putting my problem answer down, because all of our numbers need to be lined up. And step number 4, whoops, wrong color, is to add. And there is our product. Now again, we still have to estimate, So we're going to go over here and we are going to round to our greatest place value, which is the hundreds place. And when we do that, 197 will become 200. And we're going to multiply that times 3. And so our estimate is going to be 600. Now, because we rounded up, we rounded 197 to 200, we have to think about, is our estimate going to be higher than our actual product or lower than our actual product? Because we're rounding that number up, our estimate should always be higher than our actual product. Now, if we round our actual number down, then our estimate should be lower than our product. So, because our estimate is 600 and the actual answer is 591, I think I probably did a good job. Okay, let's look at another problem. Again, step number 1 is to expand. So we're going to expand this number. We have 5,000. We have 300. Now, when we look in the tens place, there's a 0. We don't need to have my 0 in expanded form. The 0 doesn't mean anything. When I'm going to start multiplying to find my partial products, 0 times 7 is equal to 0. So, and if I add 0 to anything, then the number doesn't change. So I can skip over the 0 and go right to the 6. Second step, multiply times our 7, or distribute that 7 to each number. Step number 3 is to multiply to find my partial products. And again, I have to start in the ones place when I'm putting my numbers down, so all of my numbers are lined up nicely. And then I add down. That is step number 4, to add those pieces together. And there is my answer. Now I still have to round. With this problem, to find my estimate, I'm going to round this number down to 5,000. Oops, 5,000 times 7. Now, I'm going to round it down because I look at my thousands place. Its neighbor is a 3, and I know with my rule, anything 4 or smaller, we just ignore it and turn it into zeros. So, when I do this, because I'm rounding down, my estimate is going to be less than my actual product. And in fact, it is, which is very good for me, which means I probably did my work correctly. So there's my estimate, and there is my product. Okay, now let's take a look at 2 problems from your homework. A maize at a county fair is made from 275 bales of hay. The maize at the state fair is made from 4 times as many bales of hay. How many bales of hay are used for the maize at the state fair? So we have our county fair, and this is as much as it is for the county fair. And then our state fair is 4 times as many as the county fair. So in order to figure out what our state fair is, we have to multiply 275 times 4. So let's set up our problem. We have 275 times 4. Now, same steps apply. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Step number 1 is to expand 275. Step number 2 is to distribute. That means I'm multiplying each piece times my 1-digit number, which is my 4. That one right there. Step number 3 is to find my partial product. So I'm going to multiply each piece. And finally, step number 4 is to add my pieces together. And I end up with 1,100. Now, I have to give that some sort of depth. 1,100 what? Am I talking about feet? Am I talking about inches? Am I talking about hairs on my head? No, in this case, I'm talking about bales of hay. So on my answer, I'm going to have 1,100 bales of hay. And that is the answer to that problem. Okay, let's take a look at the last problem on that page, one of the last problems on your homework, at least on the front side. Pedro gets 8 hours of sleep each night. So each night, that's how much he gets. How many hours does he sleep in a year with 365 days? So if each night he gets 8 hours, and he gets 8 hours 365 times, then that means I'm going to have to multiply. So I'm going to set my multiplication problem up. 365 times 8. Step number 1 is to distribute. So I'm going to expand. I'm going to take my 365 and break it up into 365 5. Step number 2 is to distribute. So I'm going to take my 8 and multiply each piece by my 8. Step number 3 is to multiply to find my partial products. And finally, step number 4 is to add. And there we go. There is my answer. You should sleep 2,920, or Pedro sleeps 2,920 hours a year. Alright guys, remember your 4 steps. Expand, distribute, multiply to find your partial products, and then add. That is how we solve these.